Book One is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is an author, musician, pastor, and doctor of minister. No other than Mr. John Hamilton.
Thank you, Daniel. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I really do appreciate your time.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. John. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. Well, I started off as a musician. I was in the right place at the right time when the Beatles came out, and uh,
Yes.
and knew that that was what I wanted to do for a living. And I was able to do that. I was studied music in college and went on to play in bands. And I was a songwriter. Worked in Nashville as a songwriter, and got pretty close to the brass ring. But then, unfortunately, I developed or had a very bad panic attack just out of the clear blue on stage one night, and that changed everything for me. I developed a panic disorder after that, and for somebody who just loved to be on stage, I could not get back up on stage again. So that basically ended my music career. I spent a little bit of time in advertising, but then I did something that I almost did when I was in the eighth grade, which was go to seminary. So I went to seminary and I became a pastor. Um, and over the course of time, still doing music, and I'm still releasing music today. I feel that very fortunate that I've been able to keep my keep my hands active in that way, and and also being able to combine all of those things: writing, ministry, and music. It's been I feel very fortunate.
Mr. John Hamilton, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Let's talk about Honest to God, one of your book, and tell us about this.
Honest to God is a memoir which traces several of the things that I just mentioned. It traces going from being a musician to being a pastor in one timeline, and then it follows my last year at a particular parish, which was about 10 years ago, where I it sort of sounds like a faith crisis that went on, but it really wasn't a faith crisis as much as a deeper understanding of what God was, and how that concept of God was so overpowering and so beyond our understanding that many of the things that we were doing in church seemed to me to be almost beside the point. That we were worshiping a God that was much smaller than the God that really is.
Interesting, Mr. John. And honest to God is a powerful phrase. What did it mean to you before your journey began, and how has its meaning evolved through the spotlight, pulpit, and wilderness phases?
Well, that's a great question. Honest to God, always, it's sort of a just a colloquial phrase that we use. Honest to God, I'm telling you the truth. Honest to God, that type of thing. But what I wanted to do in this book was literally to be honest about my journey, which involved a good deal of doubt, a good deal of reassessing my belief system. And that's something that is very tough to do from the pulpit. Um, as a pastor, one of the things that you one does not want to do is to put people in a position where they're questioning if their pastor is believing the same things as they are. So I wanted to do this in a book, in a book form, rather than preaching about this, so that I would have some distance from it, in the sense of doing this sort of after I had left this particular parish, um, and also to have uh, some freedom to write more deeply into what I was feeling. And the really beautiful part of this is, one of the things I did when the book launched, just before the first of the year, is I went back to my parish that I had been, that appears in this book, as one of the excuse me, kickoff uh, uh, events of for the book, and I got a terrifically warm welcome from the people in the congregation that had read the book. They were not disturbed at all. They thought that it was an honest assessment of what my journey had been, and they I think they really appreciated the fact that I really cared about them, and which comes across, I think, in the book. They uh, they were a great congregation, and secondly, they allowed me the freedom to express, some things that were not particularly orthodox, uh, in traditional Christianity.
Mr. John, what was the deepest hunger or emptiness that fame and the spotlight could not satisfy, ultimately driving you towards the pulpit? What is a sudden awakening or a slow disillusionment?
Well, again, another great question, Daniel. I think, let me just break that into two parts. Um, I found music to be very fulfilling. I think that, in fact, music and God were very connected for me. I grew up in a church, a Roman Catholic church, that had a great, great choir. Um, in the days when choirs were doing, really, still, this is pre or just post Vatican II, doing some very wonderful music, doing Bach and Pergolesi, all of the really beautiful classical music. So I was exposed to this as a as a boy when I was 8 or 9 years old. I ended up singing with the Boston Symphony Orchestra when I was 12 years old. So my first my first recording session was when I was 12 years old, and to feel an entire orchestra behind you is such an overpowering feeling. It leads to this idea of transcendence that I talk about in the book, which is that feeling where you um, feel yourself absorbed into something much, much larger than you, and where your ego disappears. And it's actually a very comforting and very beautiful feeling. So I think, I may have stayed in music had it not been for uh, the unfortunate onset of this panic disorder. Um, but then working in the business world, it didn't take me too long to realize that, even though it was something that I could be competent at and occasionally good at, it was empty. It did not fulfill anything in my soul. Even though I was working in the creative department, I was uh, making creative things for other people to use to sell their products, which to me was not the way that I wanted to spend the rest of my life. So, um, as I mentioned, I had almost gone to seminary when I was in eighth grade, but so that had sort of that desire had sort of gone underground for 30 years or so and resurfaced at this period of time when I was looking for meaning in my life, and was able to go to seminary. I was able to do freelance work to support myself while I was doing that, and my wife was very, very supportive of what I was doing. So I ended up in seminary, and am glad that I did.
Very well said, Mr. John. We are happy for you. We salute you. Following God is not easy. What surprised you most about the transition into ministry? What aspects of church life or pastoral responsibility felt profoundly different from your expectations?
Ah, great question. I would say that I think I might have had a little bit of knowledge of this going in, but it became much more deep and much more profound the longer I spent in ministry, and that is how close you become to people in times of great joy, in times of great sadness. So there are people with whom I was there when either a child was born or unfortunately, in a couple of cases where a child had died. I was with people when one of their parents passed away, and those are bonds that are very, very powerful. If you have been with somebody as they go through an experience like this, you that's a lifetime bond. There are people that if I see them now, even though if I haven't seen them maybe in 10 or 15 years, we will still be very, very close because of those bonds, because of that bond that we built up um, in going through that transition together. So I think that was I sort of had an inkling that something like that would happen, but it was much, much deeper than I thought it would be. I could right off the top of my head, I'm thinking right now of a situation where I was sitting at a bedside with somebody who was a good friend of mine, who also happened to be in the congregation. His mother was in and out of consciousness for quite a while as we sat there and we were conversing, and she passed away while we were sitting there. And that was a moment it was a sacred moment for the two of us together, and something that has held us together through that bond ever since.
The wilderness is a potent metaphor. Was this phrase for you primarily one of loss, seeking, doubt, rebellion, or something else entirely?
Um, I think two of the words you just mentioned, I think are applied to this period of time. Uh, some doubt, but mostly seeking. I think that where I live in New England, which is uh, there are many churches closing here. In fact, one of the things that I've been doing recently as a pastor is helping to close churches, which is a very uh, it can be a very sad situation. It's when people cannot afford to maintain a building that was a church, and that church had a central role in this community, and the church just can no longer sustain itself. That's a sad situation, and so many of the things that the church does, like taking care of people who are in need of food or in need of heat, or in need of clothing and those type of things. Those things sort of disappear. So I think we are in sort of a little bit of a wilderness period right now, as many things. I mean, we live in a world right now that is that is going through tremendous changes. Obviously, you can't pick up a newspaper without seeing some change that is happening that is profound, and almost a tectonic shift in what is the way that we think. So I think that organized religion is one of those institutions that is moving into a wilderness period right now. I think it is something that we will have to go through and come out the other side to see what this period of time will birth. Death always leads to a birth. There's the two things are connected.
Again, Mr. John, very well said. As an author, musician, and a pastor, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Oh, well, I'm at an age where I don't make many long time goals. Um, I have I my goal right now uh, is to be grateful, and to continue just to create. I feel very lucky that I've been given this amount of time on this earth to be able to write, to be able to still write and record music. I have a little studio in the house here, so I record the music. I put the music out on Spotify. I have about I don't know 20,000 followers on Spotify. That's something I never imagined would happen. So my short term goal is to continue to try to be creative. I think that is something that keeps us going, gives you a reason to get out of bed in the morning. I probably have, I think, one other book left in me at this point. Since the last one took me so long to write, I'm not sure if I want to take that amount of time to write it, but I've been working on that for a while, and so continuing to be creative for me and having the time to do that is my short term goal.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. John, and looking forward for more success. What would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author, want to be a pastor, as well as to be a musician?
Wow, that's a there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Let's start with musician. Musicians have a tough time right now. When I was coming up as a musician, you could actually make a middle class living as a musician. I played in situations that piano bars and rock clubs and stuff like that. And while you were not going to get rich doing that, you could make a decent middle class living. That those days are gone for musicians. It just it doesn't happen. They get virtually no pay if they go out to play, and you only get pennies, from streaming. So for musicians, I would say, if you would like to be a musician, make sure you have a good day gig that is going to be able to support you as a musician. Um, Pastor, again, that is another field. Most of these fields that I've worked in are have changed so radically. But if you really have a burning desire to be a pastor, you will almost always find a way through that. That's a question of desire, and I think that most of the people that I know that are pastors, that's what got them there. It was something that was. It's almost something you had to do. That you just really did not have a choice, and I mean that in a good way. That you didn't have a choice. Writing is another tough game. I think I got very lucky. I spent about 7 years on this book. and worked at it hard, and was very diligent about it. But getting published today is a very difficult thing, or traditionally published. I was fortunate in that I had a friend who was a woman that I had gone through seminary with, who had moved on to become an acquisitions editor at a publishing company that was doing adventurous spirituality, they call it. So I we got in touch. She read the manuscript, said, "This is, what we're the kind of stuff we're looking for." And she said, and this part gets a little funny, I hope. She said, just a few changes in the manuscript. So a year and a half later, after those changes, the book was published. And so my advice, I mean, desire comes into all three of these things. It's got to be something that's in your heart that's going to have to drive you, because there will be a lot of rejection and uh, a lot of bridges to cross. But that's balanced off by just the joy of doing these things. Being a pastor is great, being a musician is great, being a writer is great. I love all three of those things.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. John. And hoping our listeners or watching us right now will follow you. Looking back at your younger self in each phase, spotlight, pulpit, wilderness, what does your current self most want to offer them in terms of understanding or peace or grace too?
Let's see. So I think that the person that was in the spotlight, I would look back at him and say, "Job well done. You gave it your best shot." Only a few musicians actually do make it to that. The stage at Madison Square Garden, but uh, you had a good time doing it, and job well done. Uh, to the uh, to the writer person, I would say, thank you for being persistent, because that's in order to get something finished, and finishing is the big thing. Yeah, and let me say
Yes.
that to anyone who's writing out there. If you finish something, congratulations. I applaud you for finishing something. The rest of that is going to be just a lot of luck, or a lot of chance encounters. So if you finish, my applause to you. Just finish it. And in this wilderness period, I'm trying to find places where there are new communities, where I write on Substack a lot about these intersections between community and spirituality, and the changing nature of spirituality that is going on in certainly the United States, most likely in other parts of the world. So I, try to keep that up as well too. Try to keep that dialogue going about those subjects that really interest me.
Well, Mr. John, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in its fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 in each fourth season, and my baby podcast, Mental Health 101 and Law 101. And Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its fourth season, Science 101 in its first season, as well as my Sex 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. John, ultimately, what is the core message of hope challenge or liberation you most want readers to carry with them after closing the cover of Honest to God?
There's a very simple message at the end of Honest to God, and that is the message of hope. That we are a people that are sustained by hope, and excuse me, and hope is so important to the human psyche. In fact, one of the things I did at the end of Honest to God is to take the lines from First Corinthians by Paul that is in the New Testament, where Paul says uh, the greatest of these is love. He speaks of faith, hope, and love, and I kind of turned that around. I uh, took a little bit of exception to Paul, in that I believe that the greatest of these is hope. That is really what sustains us humans on our journey through life. That we can hope for a better world. We can hope for better relationships. We can hope for better outcomes from our work together. And so, if I were to leave people with just one word, it would have to be hope.
Indeed. Hope, people. Hope. Mr. John Hamilton. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, Honest to God, or wherever advocacy that you want to promote?
Sure. Well, you can find the book Honest to God on Amazon. You can find my Substack, which has the strange title of Dance Steps for the Apocalypse. And that's on Substack. So that's the best way to keep up with me. Also Spotify. So, but you'd find that also in my Substack.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. John Hamilton because if you support him, more and more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering music to come, and for sure, more and more empowering message to come. Mr. John, thank you so much for your
Oh,
time.
Daniel, thank you so much for great questions, and thank you for letting me be on the show. I appreciate it.
Modicon people, see you soon.